Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters, and welcome back to the Islamic SHAHADA channel. Tunisia is widely regarded as the most liberal country in the Arab world. It is known for its strong secular institutions, advanced civil laws, and progressive social policies, including some of the earliest gender reforms in the region. At the same time, Tunisia remains a majority Muslim nation, with Islam embedded in its constitution, public life, and national identity. Islam entered the region of present-day Tunisia in the 7th century during the Umayyad expansion into North Africa. Following the consolidation of Muslim rule, the city of Kairouan was founded in 670 CE. It became the earliest major Islamic city in North Africa, and a strategic base for further expansion across the Maghreb. Kairouan quickly developed into a religious and intellectual center. The city played a major role in the formation and spread of the Maliki school of jurisprudence, which later became the dominant legal tradition across North and West Africa. Scholars from Kairouan contributed to early Maliki legal thought and to the standardization of Islamic scholarship in the region. During the medieval period, Tunisia experienced several major Islamic dynasties, including the Aghlabids, Fatimids, and Hafsids. Each period contributed to the growth of Islamic governance, education, and cultural institutions. The Aghlabids supported the development of mosques, libraries, and learning centers. The Fatimids established Tunisia as a political base before expanding eastward. The Hafsids reinforced Sunni Maliki identity and enhanced local religious authority. Key historical landmarks from this era remain central to Tunisia's Islamic legacy. The Great Mosque of Kairouan is one of the oldest and most influential mosques in the Muslim world, noted for its early Islamic architecture and its role as a center of legal and theological study. In Tunis, the Zaytuna Mosque and University became another major institution, producing scholars who shaped Islamic law, governance, and intellectual life across the region. The Zaytuna Mosque and University in Tunis has functioned as one of the primary intellectual centers of North African Islam for more than 1,000 years. As one of the oldest continuously operating institutions of Islamic education in the region, Zaytuna played a central role in standardizing religious instruction and producing scholars who shaped Islamic jurisprudence and governance. Several prominent figures are associated with Zaytuna's intellectual tradition. Ibn Khaldun, a foundational thinker in sociology and historiography, studied in Tunis under Zaytuna scholars Imam Sahnun, one of the most influential jurists of the Maliki school, contributed significantly to the development and codification of Maliki legal doctrine. Numerous other scholars in theology, law, and Arabic sciences were trained within Zaytuna's networks. The Sunni Maliki school became the dominant legal tradition in Tunisia, and most of the Maghreb. Its principles influenced family law, social customs, and local understandings of religious practice for centuries. Maliki jurisprudence, with its emphasis on community custom, urf, and pragmatic legal reasoning, aligned closely with the social realities of North Africa. In addition to formal scholarship, local Sufi traditions played a major role in shaping Tunisian religious identity. Orders such as the Qadiriyya and Tijaniyya operated widely, especially outside major urban centers. Their influence contributed to a religious culture that combined legal orthodoxy with devotional practices and local spiritual networks. Despite significant political and social changes in the modern era, including state-driven secular reforms and shifts in educational structures, the Maliki identity and Zaytuna's legacy remain influential. Many Tunisians continue to identify with Maliki jurisprudence, and Zaytuna retains symbolic authority as a reference point for religious legitimacy in contemporary Tunisia. French rule in Tunisia, established through the Protectorate from 1881 to 1956, introduced broad structural changes that reshaped the country's legal, educational, and administrative systems. The colonial government implemented reforms intended to align Tunisia with French political and social models, which contributed to the early development of secular institutions. One of the major impacts was the modernization of the legal system. French authorities restricted the authority of Islamic courts, transferring many civil and commercial matters to newly created secular courts based on French legal codes. Sharia courts were gradually limited to personal status issues, reducing the scope of Islamic jurisprudence in public governance. The education system also underwent significant transformation. French language schools expanded rapidly, producing a new class of Tunisians educated in French legal, administrative, and scientific disciplines. This group later formed the core of the country's modern bureaucratic and political elite. Exposure to French educational institutions encouraged the growth of secular and reformist thought, especially among urban intellectuals. Colonial policies influenced language use, promoting French as a language of government, commerce, and higher education. This shift affected social mobility and contributed to a cultural divide between French-educated elites and the traditional religious networks centered around Zaytuna. The relationship between religion and the state changed substantially during this period. While Islam remained central to everyday life, the colonial administration reduced the political role of religious institutions, reorganized waqf, endowment properties, and placed mosques under state supervision. These policies laid the groundwork for later secular reforms after independence. French colonialism therefore served as the initial phase of Tunisia's secularization, establishing institutions, legal frameworks, and social dynamics that would continue to shape the country long after the end of the protectorate. After independence in 1956, Habib Bourguiba, Tunisia's first president, implemented an aggressive secularization program that redefined the relationship between religion and the state. Bourguiba viewed rapid modernization as essential for Tunisia's development, and he considered traditional religious structures an obstacle to creating a modern nation-state. One of his most significant actions was the introduction of the 1956 Code of Personal Status, which remains one of the most liberal family law systems in the Arab world. The code abolished polygamy, restricted unilateral divorce, and introduced legal protections for women that were unprecedented in the region. These reforms reduced the influence of traditional Maliki jurisprudence and placed family law firmly under the control of the state. Bourguiba also moved to limit Islamic inheritance practices, promoting interpretations that diverged from classical Maliki rules in cases such as adoption, guardianship, and women's legal rights. Over time, the state asserted greater authority over personal status issues, often bypassing or redefining religious norms. Religious institutions were brought under strict government supervision. Mosques were nationalized, Friday sermons were monitored, and the activities of clergy were regulated. Zaytuna University, once a leading Islamic center, was dismantled as an independent institution and integrated into the national university system, significantly reducing its religious autonomy. Bourguiba positioned himself as a symbol of modernity and an opponent of what he considered religious conservatism or fundamentalism. His public statements emphasized rationalism, national unity, and a vision of Islam compatible with the state's secular agenda. This approach shaped Tunisia's political culture for decades. The long-term impact of Bourguiba's policies includes a population accustomed to secular governance, a legal system largely independent of Islamic jurisprudence, and a religious sphere that has remained under state control. These reforms established the foundation for Tunisia's reputation as the most liberal country in the Arab world. Under President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali, 1987 to 2011, the Tunisian government intensified state control over religious activity and political Islam. Ben Ali framed his rule as a continuation of Bourguiba's secular modernization project, but with a sharper focus on security and political stability. During this period, Islamist movements were heavily repressed. The Ennahda movement, the largest Islamist political organization in Tunisia, was banned. Thousands of its members and sympathizers were arrested, and many others fled into exile. Political participation on a religious basis was prohibited, and public expression of Islamist identity was treated as a threat to state authority. Mosques were closely monitored. Imams were appointed by the state, sermons were regulated, and activities deemed politicized were banned. Informal religious gatherings were restricted, and any form of independent religious activism risked being interpreted as opposition to the government. This produced a long-term tension between the secular state and segments of society with conservative or religious orientations. While the regime promoted a strict version of secular national identity, many Tunisians continued to identify strongly with Islamic values. The disconnect between formal state policy and social religious sentiment contributed to rising resentment, particularly among younger and lower-income populations. By the end of the Ben Ali era, the divide between an authoritarian secular state and an increasingly disillusioned population had become a major factor in Tunisia's political instability, setting the stage for the 2011 revolution. The 2011 revolution began in Tunisia and triggered the broader Arab Spring across the region. The fall of President Ben Ali opened political space that had been restricted for decades, including expanded democratic freedoms and greater freedom of religion. The moderate Islamist party Ennahda, returning from years of exile and repression, won the country's first free election. Its rise prompted major national debates on the role of Islam in the state. Key questions emerged: whether Islam should form the constitutional foundation of the new political system, and how the relationship between religion and the state should be redefined in a post-authoritarian environment. The constitutional negotiations produced a compromise. Islam was recognized as the religion of the state, but the legal and political framework remained secular. This arrangement became the basis for managing the balance between Tunisia's Muslim majority identity and its modern secular state structure. Muslims make up approximately 98 to 99% of Tunisia's population in 2025. National identity is shaped by a combination of Islamic heritage, liberal social norms, modern institutions, and Mediterranean cultural influence. Religiosity varies significantly across regions. Urban areas such as Tunis, Sfax, and Sousse show more liberal social attitudes, while interior regions like Kairouan, Gabes, and Sidi Bouzid maintain more conservative religious practices. Since the political opening after 2011, interest in Islamic studies, especially Maliki jurisprudence, has increased, supported by academic circles, community programs, and renewed activity in mosques. Young Tunisians show a mixed identity pattern. Many combine secular education, global cultural exposure, and modern lifestyles with continued attachment to Islamic traditions. This duality forms the core of Tunisia's contemporary religious landscape. Tunis represents the country's most secular and politically liberal environment. It hosts major universities, such as the University of Tunis and various French-influenced institutions, that shape a large class of professionals with modern and progressive views. Muslim practice in Tunis is diverse. Some residents maintain regular mosque attendance, while others adopt a more cultural expression of Islam. Government institutions, media, and civil society groups based in the capital often promote legal and social reforms that reduce the role of religion in state governance. Despite this atmosphere, Zaytuna Mosque and Zaytuna University remain significant as historic centers of Sunni Maliki scholarship. Their influence is more symbolic than political but continues to attract students interested in classical Islamic studies. Kairouan is regarded as the religious heart of Tunisia and one of the oldest Islamic cities in North Africa. The Great Mosque of Kairouan is a major institution for Maliki jurisprudence and remains a point of reference for traditional scholarship. Residents tend to maintain stronger religious practices, including frequent mosque attendance, traditional family structures, and community-based religious education. The city also hosts annual Islamic festivals and gatherings that attract visitors and scholars from across the region. Reinforcing its image as a conservative and historically rooted Muslim center, Sfax is an industrial and commercial hub, known for a population that balances conservative social values with economic pragmatism. Muslim communities in Sfax generally uphold traditional Maliki practices, and local religious leaders often maintain strong influence in family and social matters. Sousse, a major coastal tourism city, has a more mixed environment. While tourism introduces global cultural exposure, many neighborhoods remain socially conservative with strong attachment to religious customs. Both cities are shaped by economic mobility, factories, commerce, and tourism, leading to a blend of traditional Muslim identity with modern working-class lifestyles. Southern Tunisia is known for more conservative religious attitudes compared to the northern coastal cities. Tribal heritage and tight-knit communities reinforce traditional social norms, including strong respect for local imams and family elders. Sufi orders such as the Qadiriyya and other local branches maintain active religious influence through zawiyas, Sufi lodges, community gatherings, and rituals tied to local heritage. Economic limitations and fewer higher education institutions contribute to a slower pace of social liberalization, resulting in Muslim communities that retain more classical religious interpretations and practices. The status of Muslim women in Tunisia reflects a complex intersection between secular state legislation and long-standing Islamic cultural norms. Tunisia is often described as the Arab world's most progressive country on women's rights due to the Personal Status Code introduced in 1956, which set legal standards that diverge sharply from classical Islamic jurisprudence. One of the most significant measures is the legal ban on polygamy, making Tunisia the only Arab-majority country where monogamy is mandated by law and violations are punishable. Divorce laws are also structured to give women broader access to legal separation, allowing either spouse to initiate divorce through the courts without the strict evidentiary requirements that exist under traditional fiqh. These legal arrangements have contributed to higher female participation in education, legal institutions, and the workforce, a major national controversy from 2017 to 2025 centers on inheritance reform. While classical Islamic law assigns daughters half the share of sons, political leaders and liberal activists proposed equal inheritance to align with the country's secular legal direction. This sparked strong opposition from religious scholars and conservative communities who argued that equal inheritance contradicts explicit Quranic rulings. By 2025, the state has kept the classical Islamic inheritance system as the legal default, but allows families to choose equal inheritance through specific legal contracts. The debate remains one of the clearest indicators of the ideological divide within Tunisian society. Public attitudes among Tunisian Muslims are split. Urban residents, especially in Tunis and coastal regions, tend to support continued secular reforms, influenced by education, professional environments, and exposure to global norms. In contrast, communities in interior regions such as Kairouan, Sidi Bouzid, and Gabes place greater emphasis on traditional Islamic teachings, resulting in stronger resistance to reforms that appear to challenge religious doctrine. Despite these differences, women across the country participate actively in religious and public life. In many urban mosques, women attend study circles, Quran classes, and community programs, while maintaining traditional boundaries such as separate prayer spaces and the absence of women-led mixed-gender prayers. In the broader public sphere, women are highly visible in universities, civil society, professional sectors, and political institutions, reflecting the dual influence of secular legal rights and enduring Islamic cultural identity. Religious attitudes among Tunisia's younger generation are shaped by improved education, widespread digital access, and exposure to global cultural and political debates. Tunisian youth tend to be more critical and analytical compared to previous generations, and this shift is reflected in how they engage with Islam broadly. Young people fall into three observable categories. The first and largest group is moderate practicing Muslims who maintain core religious habits, such as Ramadan fasting, Friday prayers, and traditional family values, while also supporting aspects of modern social life and democratic governance. The second group consists of liberal Muslims, concentrated mainly in urban centers like Tunis, Sousse, and Sfax. They embrace a more individualistic interpretation of Islam, prioritize personal freedoms, and often support legal reforms that align with secular principles. The third group comprises conservative Muslims, more common in interior regions such as Kairouan and Sidi Bouzid, where religious identity remains closely tied to community norms and traditional Maliki scholarship. Another trend is the growing number of young people pursuing studies at modernized Zaytuna institutions or participating in structured Islamic learning programs. These students often aim to reconnect with Tunisia's classical religious heritage while adapting Islamic knowledge to contemporary social issues. At the same time, youth face significant pressures that influence their religious behavior, including high unemployment rates, uncertainty about economic futures, and ongoing debates about national identity in a rapidly secularizing global environment. These factors create a complex landscape where young Tunisians navigate between tradition, modernity, and global digital culture, shaping new forms of Muslim identity that are unique to Tunisia's social and political context. Religious minorities in Tunisia constitute a very small portion of the population. Christians make up less than 0.5% of residents, primarily expatriates or small local communities concentrated in urban areas. The Jewish community, historically larger, is now mostly centered in Djerba, which hosts the largest Jewish population in North Africa. Despite their small numbers, these communities maintain religious institutions, schools, and cultural practices. Relations between Muslims and non-Muslims in Tunisia are generally stable and peaceful, with limited social tensions and a history of coexistence that continues into the present day. In Tunisia, mosques continue to serve as central hubs for social and religious life, providing spaces for prayer, community gatherings, and educational activities. Islamic education remains active through institutions such as modernized branches of Zaytuna University, local madrasas, and mosque-based study circles, though it does not dominate the national educational landscape, which is largely secular. Public debates persist around issues such as women wearing the hijab, the public call to prayer, adhan, and the scope of religious outreach or dawah activities. Following the 2011 revolution, the state implemented a re-regulation of mosques that allows greater freedom for religious expression while maintaining oversight to prevent political mobilization within religious institutions. This balance reflects Tunisia's ongoing effort to integrate Islamic practice into public life without undermining its secular governance framework. In 2025, Islam in Tunisia faces multiple challenges arising from the country's unique combination of a Muslim-majority population and a strongly secular state. One key tension is identity, as urban secular lifestyles often contrast with more conservative religious practices in interior regions, creating social and cultural divides. Economic pressures, including high unemployment and regional disparities, also influence religious behavior, with some communities prioritizing survival and modernization over traditional observances. Ongoing debates about inheritance law, public morality, and family law highlight the friction between secular legal reforms and classical Islamic norms. At the national level, Islam continues to coexist with Tunisia's democratic framework, but questions remain regarding the extent to which religion should shape legislation, governance, and public life. These dynamics underscore the complex balance Tunisian society maintains between tradition, modernity, and democratic principles. Tunisia represents a distinctive model in the Arab world, balancing secular governance with a strong Muslim majority identity. It is neither the most religious nor the most secular country in the region, but it has achieved a relative equilibrium where Islam remains active in daily life, public institutions, and cultural practices while coexisting with modern laws, democratic norms, and liberal social policies. Religious institutions, such as mosques and educational centers, continue to serve communities, and Maliki jurisprudence retains symbolic and practical relevance. At the same time, younger generations navigate a hybrid identity, integrating secular values, global exposure, and Islamic heritage. The Tunisian experience demonstrates that Islam in a liberal society can be flexible, adaptive, and resilient, maintaining its place as a central element of national identity while adjusting to the demands of a modern democratic state. In this way, Tunisia shows that liberalism and Islam are not inherently contradictory, but can coexist in a functional and evolving framework. Thanks for watching until the end. I hope it was useful. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.